Cecilia Mejia, first of all, a huge congratulations to you. You're on a roll. A lot of successful films back to back to back from Coloranda. Of course, we can't forget Lingua Franca, followed by Yellow Rose, and now Come and Take It. It's hard to believe that you did not attend film school with all these background and all these success that you're receiving.
I didn't go to film school, but I've always been in love with film. Just never really thought that I could be a part of this world. That you just, growing up, you don't see people that look like you in front of the camera unless you're watching Filipino content, and you don't even see or know people behind the camera. So that's even harder to find. I started off in the nonprofit world. I was working with the UN and also with a couple of legal defense funds about a decade ago with the guidance of Miss Loida Lewis. She was actually how I got started in that world. And then a documentary filmmaker, a Filipino filmmaker, Diane Paragas, came to my office for research on a feature film that she was doing about an undocumented Filipina girl. And it sounded really interesting to me, and then she had added the element of it being a country music star, and I was like, well, I don't even know how this is gonna pan out. And then it was like sort of snowballed from me doing research for the film and grant writing and just connecting her with the community, Filipino community, to full on producing. And in between that decade and where Yellow Rose is now, I got to meet a lot more Filipino filmmakers, Asian filmmakers, and other people of color filmmakers, and got into other projects and ended up producing a number of short films in between.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement!
Hey! Nakbo! Where are they taking you, Mom?
It's been almost a perfect score for you. All the movies that you've worked on, the common denominator is you. Filmmaker PJ Raval, director PJ Raval, we spoke to him not too long ago, and he mentioned your name as well many times during that interview. It seems to be that also another common denominator of these movies is touching on different social issues.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about using film as a tool to put a spotlight on these social issues that we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a really important element for me. It's how and for a long time, it was how I justified working in film, because as a young Filipina, your parents are always like, you need to do more practical things. So it was my way of melding my nonprofit work and my passion for film. And I have to credit PJ a lot, because PJ first identified what I had been doing in film as social impact. I'd been doing it for a while, and he brought me on to do social impact producing for Call Her Ganda, and it was sort of clicked for me that of course I'm going to work on films that have a strong component for social issues, and also just a way of educating people on different elements that they probably are not really aware of. For Call Her Ganda, there's a lot of elements of the Filipino American history that we don't know about. And as filmmakers, PJ will also tell you, we also learned about parts of our history that we didn't know. And it's interesting to see how you can translate that into an educational component, because I also teach this social impact producing at NYU, and just not through documentaries, but also through narrative film. What you see is this with social impact producing and with social issues in film. Film has this way of reaching people in a way that no other medium can. It can reach a wider audience. It can reach a diverse audience, and if it's done right, you can leave the theater still thinking about what you just saw. And so the purpose of social impact really is to prolong the life of the film, to prolong what it is that we're talking about within the film. And I was just talking about this the other day. It's art is really a way to leverage change. And that's something that we definitely need right now. So I think film is definitely the way to do it.
And this is wonderful, because this is basically an intersection. You're at the intersection of activism,
Mm-hmm.
impact, wanting social issues, amplifying those voices, and entertainment. and art. So you're entertaining, but at the same time, it's thought-provoking. When you started on these projects, did you expect that it will resonate? It resonates with you, that's your values. It resonates with filmmakers like PJ, but did you expect the actual commercial public to embrace it as much as you have? Was this something expected?
Yes and no. I think it really helps me in producing and social impact producing to have come from the nonprofit world first, because when I was in the nonprofit world, I was in the development side. So anyone who's familiar with that knows that you're much like a producer. You wear every hat and you have to tell the story of the organization. And so I've always operated from the sense that most people don't care unless it personally affects them. And so I'm always kind of pleasantly surprised when I see an audience outside of what I expected to really care about it, especially with a documentary. Documentary is so niche sometimes that you don't expect people to be affected by it. But Call Her Ganda seems to be one of those documentaries that's really like transcending beyond the audience that it probably was intended for. That's the beauty of social impact. That's the beauty of an artist knowing how they want to tell the story, but also knowing how they want to make an impact. With Lingua Franca, I'm like pleasantly surprised at how many people outside of what was expected are really embracing the film and actually embracing Isabel.
That man, I was paying him to marry me for a green card.
And then with Yellow Rose, I'm hoping, because it's also the added element of music, that there's another form of artistry that we're trying to reach people with. Yeah, like a genre that's very American, but we're telling it through a Filipino lens. I'm anticipating that it's going to be a lot of back and forth about it, but I'm actually excited about that conversation.
Be better for you. I promise.
Come and take it. I'm actually a social impact producer on that film. I'm not the producers. I want to give credit to the producers. So it's interesting for me to see it take off now, because the timing is right, and I always felt like there needed to be more done with that film because of Jessica. It started off as a joke for her, which and now it's become a movement, and she's really serious about it. And I'm just really happy to be part of the team, really honored to be part of the team to continue that movement and to see how many people she's going to inspire to take action through this film.
Inspiration is also coming from another one of your films, Yellow Rose. It has been picked up by Sony, due for commercial release on October 9th. And so we're inviting people, especially our viewers, Filipino Americans, to support the movie. Now, Cecile, was this something that you expected? And I know that you raised funds for this. At what point in the raising of funds to the filming, post-production, did you entertain the idea that, it could and it might get picked up?
Interesting. I'm a Pisces, so I'm a dreamer, but I'm also like on this cusp of Aquarius. I'm very into astrology. So it's also, I'm very practical, so pragmatic. So half of my brain was like taking this one step at a time. The other half was dreaming, but not really dreaming out loud, just in case it didn't happen. But I think there's some element of me that always believed we were going to get here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pushed through this whole time. For a long time, it was just Diane and I, and we were getting a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, a lot of people not believing in the project. And it really wasn't until we reached people of influence within the Filipino community that we got traction. And I should credit like those people, especially the Alvarez family, but also abs-cbn for coming into this playing field and said, we want to help Fil-Am films and Fil-Am filmmakers. So that was really big of them to be able to do that. But as far as like, I just always thought one step at a time. Let's get to here, let's get to here, let's get to here. Because as a producer, you're just trying to stay afloat with everyone. But for me, the goal had always been to get the film made and to get the film seen by our family and friends. And we did that last year. I thought last year was a dream when we had this big festival run. Then all of a sudden Sony comes in and they're like, we want to show your film. And still that I still didn't believe it until they told us that they want us to play in theaters. So, it's still every day a little bit of a dream. But for me, the goal was already achieved. Everything after this has just been icing on the cake.
What's next? What are you currently working on?
PJ and I have a number of things going on. We have a digital series called Kapwa, which will actually debut at CAMFest next month, so the Center for Asian American Media. And then we're revamping the Call Her Gunda social impact campaign, given everything that's happened with the case. But I'm also working with a director, like kind of kindred spirit writer, Clarissa Dellas Reyes, and I say that name because I think a lot of people are waiting for her project, because she's been so supportive of everybody else, and I think it's her turn. So we have a couple of good projects, I think, that are on the horizon. But for as me personally, like on my own, I have a nonprofit called Art of Me, which actually does a lot of the social impact film work, art education work with underrepresented high school students in Cleveland and New York City. So we have a couple of films coming out. We have one called Blood Hana, which was directed by Filipina Mary Evangelista, and it will show at LA Asian Pacific next month, and a centerpiece at Asian American International Film Festival. So it's the first time any one of my students in the number of years I've been doing this ever wrote for an Asian American in the lead. And she wasn't even Asian American, he's Puerto Rican. And I asked her why she did it, and she said, I wanted to write characters that I never saw on TV. And I just thought, so you think about that thing, you think about those things. A high school student said that to you, because obviously she's not seeing it in the media, so you have to keep working for them.
This year, a lot of people have encountered losses, mostly due to the pandemic. And it's not just in the US, it's worldwide. But not you, it seems. Any advice for folks out there who are struggling with their career, maybe have lost their job during this time? Like yourself, for instance, you didn't essentially pursue filmmaking, you stumbled upon it. What would be your message? This could be hope. This could trigger hope among viewers who have lost their career, lost their jobs, knowing that there might be something out there, and it might be better.
Yeah. It's just that. It's really that. I've experienced loss, even through the last few months. I've experienced losses, and what I've learned, it took a long time to get to this point where I am more resilient than I ever expected to be. And it, I think there's this quote where it's like, you never will understand the violence it took to get you to be this strong. So it's about taking your circumstance, and which is also a big song in the film. It's about taking your circumstance and really analyzing how you respond to it. You can either lay down and give up, or you can just keep going, because it might look like on the surface that there have been a lot of wins, but there have been just as many losses. I just don't dwell on them as long as I used to. Learn from the losses, because they're just as important as the wins.
Was there ever a time or times when you felt like giving up?
Oh, all the time. When it's like the stakes are high and everyone is coming at you for a decision, or there's something that happened on set that you weren't prepared for, you gotta, and in my case, I had to answer to so many different time zones, because we're dealing with the Philippines, with LA, we were in Texas, then there's New York. I remember locking myself in the laundry room of that motel and just like crying. No one knew where I was. And then I walked out and I see one of our PAs, and he's like, just kind of nodded at me. But I just looked at everybody really working hard, and I just thought, everyone has a moment to break, and I think it's okay. I think it's really okay to break. You have to. And then once you break, I think you actually have this choice of either keep falling, or just get up. And my mom always says, just get up, just get over it and get up. But there's always moments. This pandemic, I'm sure everyone can relate to that. You feel like what's the point? With this upcoming election, what's the point? With every day that there's something new to be upset about, what's the point? And then you gotta go back to finding your center. And for me, what I focus a lot on when I feel like giving up is my students, because of all the things that I am, or things have been described with me the last few months or last few years, I've noticed that educator is the one that makes me feel most at home with myself. So I think about them, and I think about, if I gave up now, what would that mean for them?